We'll start this session. We have Liturgy Guided Approach, teaching students with learning differences in good order, will be presented by Mrs. Heather McCoy, who is a classical Lutheran home educator to 3 scholars and 1 graduate, and a teacher for students with learning differences. Please welcome Mrs. McCoy.
Hello. All right, thank you. So, hello everyone. Yay, okay. So, it's nice to meet you. My name is Heather McCoy, and I'm here with CCLE Academy's Center for Students with Learning Differences. I'm also a pastor's wife and a homeschool mom to those beautiful people. Today we're going to talk about how the good order of our liturgy supports the development of the executive functioning skills of your students. So in my role as an educator, I'm typically the problem solver. Families and instructors come to me when something unexpected happens or they've hit a wall. My approach is to view the humanity of the student, peeling back those layers of the issue so that I could get to the root cause. Most often, it's a skill deficiency, which causes this ripple effect. You might think of it as a snowball as well, which makes learning seem like it's just impossible. So when I find the root cause of this difficulty, and then I select strategies that make sense for that student in his learning environment. So at the end of this presentation, I will invite you to share one of your students with me, and I will provide a consultation to demonstrate my process of how I figured this out. So start thinking about someone. If you viewed our live learning event last summer, I did this during that talk. It was on YouTube. If you didn't see it, it's linked in the handouts from the QR code and also in the papers back there. Okay. All right, so the good order of our liturgy. The good order of the liturgy of our services caters to our human needs. We come into worship with our worldly issues. You're distracted, you're sick, you're angry, maybe you're really excited. But how many times have you walked in and left feeling like you're bandaged and hopeful? It's the consistency and stability that we receive from our liturgy that brings us God's word and leaves us feeling that way. So using the model of the liturgy brings good order to your learning environment, whether you're in a brick and mortar school, online, or at your dining room table. We crave that good order. So one thing also to consider here is that we have flexibility within this good order, right? We have 5 divine services. And within those divine services, each church gets to choose their readings and their hymns. So we have a structure, but we can personalize it for our own environments. It's the same thing in your learning environment. So you have the freedom to move through these steps using the tools that make sense for you and your students. So this predictability helps a lot, right? It helps with your classroom management, your planning. It's very comforting. But it also supports your students who have executive functioning weaknesses. Okay, so even with a strong, predictable classroom routine, you're likely to notice some behaviors when moving from one activity to the next. It's going to indicate that your student needs a little more support because there's an executive functioning skill that just isn't functioning. Students with ADHD and autism are particularly susceptible to these problems during transition. So if you think about it, the skills that are required to stop a task, clean up that task, prepare for the next task, and then start the next task, I mean, those are a lot of steps. It comes naturally to most of us, but if you have an executive functioning issue, those steps are really overwhelming. It takes a lot of work to maintain that attention and sometimes to even know what to do next. And then also managing all that extraneous stimuli in their environment. It's just a lot for them to deal with. So when that happens, you might see them performing some of these behaviors, and often they're kind of like rebooting, or they're just froze. So you probably stepped in to prompt, reminding them what they're supposed to do, and what you're going to see is that you're helping them engage an executive functioning skill that has malfunctioned. Okay. So what are these executive functioning skills? These are the skills that we need to enable us to be functioning individuals. We're all stronger in some areas than others, and we can use those areas that we're stronger in to compensate for the ones that we're weak. This is completely normal, whether or not you have a learning difference. But as you look at the wheel and description of these skills, I imagine you're thinking, most of these are pretty basic. They're obvious. What's the big deal? And they are. They are basic. But it's in their simplicity that we find their essentiality. Just as you have a car that needs 4 basic wheels to function, we need these skills to perform tasks from the mundane to the complex. Okay, I would like to do an experiment and ask you to stand up. And I might have enough up here. So if you would come up front, I have some sets of chopsticks, index cards, and a cup. You won't need to bring your notes with you. You'll only be up here for a little bit, I promise. But hey, you get to move after lunch, right? All right, if you need more room, there's some more supplies there. Oh, there's more people than I thought there'd be. So yesterday when I was in here listening to Reverend Kane, it was the first time I'd been in this room, and I was like, oh, there's none of those like table things, okay? And then I'm like, well, that's kind of a big stage. So first I panicked, and then, yep. So like I panicked, but I had to self-monitor because, you know, keep it together, you're an adult. I sent a text to my husband because, you know, he's my, like, what's that called, like, emotional support animal? That's pretty much what he is. And so, you know, he gave me that reassurance, and then I was like, well, we'll figure it out. I'm going to have some flexible thinking here. So thank you for indulging me. All right, so the first thing you're going to do is just take one of your cards. Without ripping it, please put it in the cup. Yep, pretty easy, right? You folded it, you rolled it, not a big deal. Well done. Okay, so you used planning, task initiation, you organized your thoughts, you problem solved by rolling or folding the card, you showed flexible thinking by altering the card to fill the cup, and you maintained attention until the task was complete. Your executive functioning skills are functioning. Yay! Okay, we're going to take that same simple task, though, and we're going to emulate an executive functioning challenge by changing your circumstances. All right, so go ahead and put that first card aside. Now, take out your chopsticks. You know where this is going? So, using one hand only, use the chopsticks to put the card in the cup without ripping it. The new one, so it's not bent. And remember, if you drop your cup, you have to use your chopsticks to pick it up. I knew there was going to be somebody. Yes. 2, all right. 3. So some people are really good at chopsticks. Yes, we have another one.
Still holding the baby. Not very well.
Ooh, it is hot up here. All right, if you have mastered this skill, you can feel free to return to your seats, and if you want a chance to try it, go ahead and come up. If you're still working, I believe in you. And if you need us to step aside for your emotional health, I also understand that. She got it, guys. She got it. All right, another success story here. You can take them as a souvenir if you want. Yeah. Yeah. May you always remember this exercise. All right, so thank you for indulging me. All right, now, so going, like I said, I had to change things up a little bit because I planned this when there were tables in front of you. So think back to the one where you did not have to use these chopsticks. You had full use of your hands to put the card in the cup, and you still used your executive functioning skills. Planning. You analyzed the situation. You decided how you were going to manipulate the card to fit the cup by either folding or rolling. You stabilized the cup with your other hand, and you're like, yes, there's the plan, that'll work. Task initiation. You knew the first step was to pick up the index card and change it. Organization. You organized your thoughts and ordered the steps. Problem solved. The card had to change shape. That was the problem. Flexible thinking. You allowed the card to change shape or size by folding it or rolling it. Attention control. You maintained attention until the task was complete. So give yourselves a hand. You did well. All right. Now, when these executive skills malfunction, these are some of the behaviors that you will see. And don't try to feverishly write this down because all of this is in the handout. Okay, so this is what happens when these skills malfunction, are dysfunctional, or are undeveloped. The mundane skill becomes complex. So in my experience, students who are struggling are significantly impacted by at least 3 of these skills. So if I give you a second to scan these descriptions, one of your students is probably coming to mind. And thinking of that student, you see why the executive functioning skills are so important. Now we're going to go back to the exercise, the chopstick version. You had to engage the same executive functioning skills when you used the chopsticks as you did without. But your skill of flexible thinking was dysfunctional because you were only able to perform this task with one tool that was super ineffective. That created a ripple effect that impacted your task initiation, which was impacted by a challenge in problem solving, impacted by the need to engage a higher level of organization in which you need to problem solve, which requires flexible thinking, and that's what you don't have because you're using chopsticks. And at this point, you may have felt frustration, which challenged your impulse control and self-monitoring skills, but how much energy did you have left to complete this task? You had this weird lady demanding that you put an index card in a cup using chopsticks. It was crazy. And sometimes that's how your students feel. So this is the ripple effect, and it's so detrimental to students. It often prohibits them from recovering from their mistakes without intensive support. So I have an example that may or may not be my own kid. 12-year-old Lily sits down to complete her math work. She looks at the first problem, doesn't remember how to do the first step. She sits and stares at the page with an internal monologue berating herself for forgetting. She decides she didn't forget. She was never taught. Now she's mad at her dad. He's a terrible teacher. She begins to draw lines on her page, increasing the force of her pencil as she becomes more angry at her dad. Now she's left with a page covered in smudged graphite, dirty hands, and an angry disposition. Her mom walks in to check on her, and Lily looks at her and snaps, "I don't understand." Now Lily's in trouble for her disrespectful tone, and she's lost her free time because she spent it carving her paper. Now she's really angry and can't even listen when I try to help her. Good news, you can contain and reverse this ripple effect. When you identify that root skill that's malfunctioning, you can put supports in place that will help that student contain the effects of the malfunction. This is where your structure is a really great tool. For example, when you're moving from the students facing front while they're giving you their attention to maybe table talks, because they work well in small groups. A consistent routine with visual reminders of where to move, what to put away, what to have on the desk, and what is expected of those table talks is going to smooth that transition for your students with challenges in attention, task initiation, organization, and flexible thinking. So back to Lily. Her daily schedule was not supportive of her executive functioning needs. After peeling back several layers, we found her root issue was with impulse control. Her impulse was to escape a task she didn't want to do in favor of handicrafts, especially the messy ones. When she became agitated, her ability to self-monitor failed, leading to a failure of time management and task initiation. To contain and reverse this effect, we had to change her dad's work schedule. He worked from home. Fortunately, he's a pastor, so he can do that. So he taught her math. He worked from home. He had his laptop doing his thing. She was sitting next to him with her math, so he was readily available, gave her the encouragement she needed, reminded her that if she kept going, she would be able to do what she wanted. We then made sure we chunked her assignments into manageable pieces because she does have dyslexia as well. Fortunately, she doesn't reverse numbers. She's actually really good at math, which made this super frustrating. But once we figured out that it was the impulse control and her trying to escape, then we were able to reroute that. Okay. So the thing I hear from teachers is, just tell me what to do. just tell me what I can do. So good news, that's what I do, is tell you what to do. Okay. First trick I have, use accordion files instead of binders to help with organizing materials. The thing here is thinking about those steps. You take out the binder, you open the binder, you open the things, You try to fit the paper inside the right way, then you have to close them, then you have to close the binder and put it back in your backpack. That doesn't seem like it's a lot of steps, but when you're a kid with ADHD and it's at the end of class and you only have a few minutes to write down the homework, put your materials away, talk to your friends, and get to your next class in time, that's really overwhelming. Something will be missed. And that's why you'll often see those backpacks with just paper. So, what I have found is that if you give them a place to shove, it's at least all shoved in the same place. And then when they go home, there we go. Mom and Dad can see it. So this is actually the work of one of my students. And remember, I teach online. We provide one-on-one tutoring and private course instruction to students who struggle. This, one of my students, this was 5th grade. He has ADHD and a sprinkle of other things that we suspect, but ADHD is his primary. He is doing writing and rhetoric. It's the curriculum from Classical Academic Press, and this was the CREA and proverb level. So he had to respond to this quote from King Arthur. His challenge is with organization. His thoughts are everywhere and often go off topic. So what I did is I made an outline in the form of a chart, and these are like virtual Post-it notes that's on the Zoom whiteboard. You can do this with actual Post-it notes. There's also a template with Google Slides that has digital Post-it notes as well. So what I did is this is the brainstorming section, and then when we did the paragraphs where he needed this information, I used the same colors of these cards so that he could match that information, and the organization was easier for him. Because he's in 5th grade, I did this part for him. But by the time, as I continue to work with him and he goes into high school, he will start to do these steps on his own, because as I'm walking him through it, I am teaching him that executive functioning skill and showing him how to manage it. Here's another one. This kid is a little bit older. Also ADHD. Have a lot of those boys. He just wants to get done. He also has dysgraphia. So taking thoughts from his mind and typing them or writing them, you're not going to get what he actually knows. So he does a lot of dictating, and he tries to use speech to text, which is not always effective. It doesn't understand him all the time. So then that's frustrating, and he gives up. So his task here was to write a full paragraph. As you can see, I highlighted full paragraph, so he knew that that was the expectation. And then what I did is I took the reading. He had to read 2 chapters. This was, I think it was a Medieval Times book from Memoria Press. It was one of those, like Renaissance and Reformation times. It was one of those books. So we had to read 2 chapters and then respond to this. So I bullet pointed what he had to do to get there, basically drew him a roadmap. And when he filled in these bullet points as he was reading, we used I took inspiration from IEW, their keyword outline, because his attention span is pretty short, and so we have to be very concise. And he's also all business. So he was able to take these words and write. Now, I wouldn't say it's an eloquent paragraph, but it answered the question. And then there's this. So this is actually a resource that I made for one of my students. It's just color-coded. It gives you step-by-step. I tried to upload it to Lutheran Homeschool, my shop on there, but it didn't want to go, so I think just the connection's bad. But I will try to get that on there. So these are some things that I do to help with the working memory, task initiation, so they have that step-by-step. And when they do this enough, they learn how to do it and then can do it independently. The other thing is to praise progress, no matter how small. And the other thing is to praise recovery. Because just like we confess our sins on Sundays, and hopefully other days of the week too, right? And we're forgiven, and that's important to us, and it's so special. You know, it's that same concept that, you know, the kids make a mistake in their work, and they need to know that the recovery is actually, I think, more important, because you're going to mess up. Mistakes are part of life, but knowing that you can recover and move on, that's where it's at. Okay, so before I go to case study, are there any questions? Yes? I use a lot of strategies, honestly. I selected the ones that I had evidence for. But like I have about 12 students that I see online, and each one of them is different, and they're taking different courses. So this is where I have to personalize what I do based on what they need. Like my two kids who have organization issues, they have different needs for those organization issues. One cannot handle a bullet point list. You know, he needs phrases and he needs those cards. The other one, that would drive him nuts. He does not want to see color. He wants it black and white. He will barely tolerate the highlight. So that's, when you guys ask me, I just need to know what to do, I'm like, that's a big question. Which is where, you know, we come to this. So are there any other questions about executive functioning skills, what I showed you? Yes? So you won't need to personalize all 24. You probably will need to, like the overall would be the good classroom management is really where it starts, right? And so you have those expectations that you set at the very beginning of the year. You follow your classroom management, and then you're going to notice that somebody just has a little trouble or they're a little bit delayed. And so then you do extra steps for that kid. And that might be a mentor that they need to just follow. That might be a small list in their notebook or on their desk. That might be a nonverbal cue from you. I had a student when I worked, before I did this, I worked in public schools in St. Louis as like a collaborative teacher. And one of my signals to that student when she was on the spectrum and social skills were like pretty rough. And so when I could see that the other students were like not happy with her, I would just do this. And she would know that she'd need to stop. So it could be something simple like that. But you're not going to have to personalize strategies for your whole class. It's just going to be a couple of these kids who really struggle with these executive functioning skills. And what you do is just add in those steps that they can't do in a way that makes sense for them and for your environment. Does that answer your question okay? Cool. Any other questions before we get to case study? Yes? So the way I do it is I kind of picture myself hovering over the situation and being an observer. So if you can't do that in the moment, maybe somebody else can. Maybe somebody else can step in and do the lesson while you're observing. You're looking at where the student freezes, where you see those behaviors of inattention, of maybe masking their embarrassment. That's where like class clown kind of stuff that they do. Maybe they're looking around trying to figure out what to do because they didn't hear you, because they were worried about something else or distracted by something else. So you're going to look at those behaviors. And then this is where sometimes it's okay to step into the progressive world and see, how do you handle this, and then make it work for us. And this is one of those times. One of the things I did was behavior modification while I was still in the schools, and it's called the antecedent behavior and consequence. So you're always looking at what happens before that behavior that you want to change. So we can say, as classical educators, we can say, I can look at the antecedent and it's okay to do that. Now, how you deal with that antecedent is going to be from a classical Christian Lutheran perspective, for your environment. So you're looking at the antecedent, what happens first, because that's where the problem is. That's what I mean by pulling away those layers. Yes? So there are a couple of books that I put on the resource sheet. One of them, I think it is Welcoming Students with Special Needs into Your Classroom. I think that's what it's called. I know it's blue, and I saw it here last year. Okay, yes. So it's blue, and it has big white letters. And it's on that resource sheet. That one has those like charts and how-tos that are very similar to what's used in like the IEP team setting, and the structure of it is just helpful for communication, which is, that book has it, and I would say definitely start there. Cheryl Swope, we all love Cheryl Swope, right? She's like a celebrity for us. Her Simply Classical book gives, I feel like her Simply Classical book gives a really, really good introduction, and it gives a wide array of ideas of where to start. And then we have the blue book that gives you the forms that you can fill out and to help with the conversations with people in your school. And then we also have, there's a book from Classical Academic Press by Dr. Amy Richards, and that goes even deeper into like the how-tos. So a combination of those. Probably the blue one, because that has like that's the tangible one. If you have enough of an idea of like what the learning disabilities are, then you can start with the blue book. If you don't, then I would go to understood.org. They have a pretty basic explanation of what to look for, and that's free. Okay, questions before the case study? All right, who has a kid that I can fix? Yes. How old is she? Okay. Okay, is she homeschooled? Does she do these behaviors at hybrid school? Okay. So if the antecedent is consistently the unexpected, then that's part of that. That's like a combination of planning and organization, flexible thinking, and then impulse control. But it sounds like the outburst is a response to a lack of flexible thinking. So when you, how often do you know ahead of time, like with lessons? I know that with free play, you're not going to dictate that, but the things that you do plan, how, especially at the hybrid school, how far ahead of time do you know what she's going to do, like for lessons? Do you preview the day with her before you go? Okay. If you preview her day, right, and have her walk through her day with you and say, okay, and who do you hope to see? Well, what if you don't see Sally? She might be sick. You know, who else might you play with? I know you really, really like that yellow bag. What's your other favorite color? You know, and so then if you get ahead of it by like planting those alternate ideas and having her consider those, then in the moment, remember you said you also really like purple, and this bag is special for you. That, because that's where it doesn't, I mean, obviously, 30 seconds that you know here, but just what I'm hearing, it's not about like controlling her emotions, it's responding to the unexpected, which is a flexible thinking problem. And I mean, often when we have those students who have those emotional outbursts, there's some things that you can do in your classroom or your home, and there's other things that it's like you need outside help. That's, you know, like psychologist help, you know, and that's a good thing, because then that psychologist is trained in a much different way. And I know for me, often I'll just ask parents, what did your doctor say? How did your doctor say to respond to this? And then we incorporate it. So that's the other thing, is like, you're not the only one to help the student, but you are on the front lines. So you're probably going to have the most information, especially if it's your own. So to kind of weed out the flexible thinking, that's what I would start with, is previewing her day, and then like talking to her about like what is actually important here, and then you might see that it's not flexible thinking, maybe it's something else. Maybe she's tired, you know, something crazy like that, or she doesn't like the rain, you know, so you might find a different trigger. So. Okay. Yes.
I had probably the most interesting year of my teaching career this past year. I had 14 students. I helped and talked to families in diagnosing 3 to 4 of them with ADHD, another with autism. Another spent a second year in first grade with me. He has a whole slew of fun ways that his brain is designed. And on the whole, I would
fun for you?
It was interesting.
Yeah.
It was good for my edification, right? But I'm passing these dear sheriffs to a beloved coworker, and I did not solve all of the issues. And I liked the question about what can I apply to a whole class, but where should I help and guide my coworker as I hand her this memorable year of her teaching?
I would focus on what worked. One thing to remember is you were not supposed to fix it. Okay. These, you have them for a year, for a handful of hours a week, right? And when they're in front of you and in your care, you are going to love them and serve them and teach them to the absolute best of your ability. And that's what you did. Okay, so you did your job. For that next teacher, because presumably you care about her as well, and you also care about those children as they go on, focus on the things that you're like, I finally figured out this worked, and this is why. This was the worst idea I'd ever had. Don't do it. And so then it's up to her to take what you have learned and continue it. The other thing to remember is you said they're in first grade? Okay. Okay, so by the end of second grade, they're going to be very different children than what you had in first grade, because third grade's a thing, right? And they're going to continue to change, and the things that weren't an issue are going to become an issue. So it's this constant journey.
You have recommended the blue book. She's on my staff too.
Okay.
Thinking of like her heart. But so the blue book is one. Is there children with special needs?
That's it.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I guess I just any organizational tools. I really liked the accordion folder. I have chronic backpack stuffer that I was thinking of with that. Are there any things for like the lift desks? Because that's what she has in her room right now. Where you have to hold the desk open with the one hand and then get out your supply, and like that's a whole level of steps. And I'm thinking about this class going into her room. Like, do we just need to move the cafeteria tables in your room here? I don't know. But,
Maybe.
yeah.
I mean, that might be the answer. If she has that many students who struggle with this, half of her day is going to be opening and closing the desks. So, if you can't get the desks out of the room, then maybe the things that they need all of the time, like their, pencils and whatnot, do you have a grandma or an aunt or a nice church lady who likes to sew like little bags they can put like on the side?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So without getting, yeah, like either back of the chair or like on the side of the desk, whatever makes sense for that environment and is not going to be a nightmare. I would say the things that need to be readily accessible, make sure they are, and then what stores inside the desk are the things that you use once a day. I'm good with that. It's totally fine. And then, so what we're starting to do is there's another teacher just like me, and when we have a slew of tutors who work with specialties, we will do over Zoom consultations like this where you just a room full of you, me on the screen, be like, all right, what are you seeing? How can I help? So we can do consultations like that where it's not like me doing a full PD or whatever. Yeah. Yes. 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 Okay. I have a table out there. You can drop it or you can just give it to me. Did you have a question? Um, it's actually my last year in a classroom. I had the benefit of working with a teacher with a special ed background, and she was so good that I didn't know I was there. So what she did is she was really good with like the visual information paired with the audio information, and she had the students write things down. Now, I will tell you, this was back in the school year of 2010 to 2011, so it's been a hot minute, and there were smart boards at the time, so that's where we were. But she had color-coded labels. This was a language arts 8th grade classroom, so she had color-coded bins with the different types of books. She had, like, her classroom was not crowded, but it was informative, and she stuck with primary colors. And the way that she arranged the seats in there, it was kind of like where she had 2 rows, and part of this was just because it was the card she was dealt for that classroom. If anybody's familiar with St. Louis, this was in U City. It was fun. So it was like weird with like the fence and stuff. So she had like two sides of the classroom, so the kids were facing each other, and then she'd walk down the middle. And so that was proximity control for classroom management, and she picked up on everything. It was pretty impressive. So I got a year of observing, so that was great for me. Yeah. Yes. Yes. One thing you can do, like I'm in Michigan, and so we do have the benefit of being massive. Your district office might have a list of vetted therapists. You can, their biographies, honestly. I mean, I used to live in Oklahoma, which was, it's like there's the Lutherans and then the Baptist-Costals, right? So it was challenging to find. Okay, yeah, gotcha. So for that, you go with like, even if you kind of find that line between like, yes, I'm a Christian, and so I'm not going to push the crazy stuff, but I'm also not going to proselytize and tell your kid to, let Jesus in their heart and, name it, claim it, and whatever else Joel Osteen is saying these days. So it's finding that where there's that, like the morals are there, but without getting like preachy. So I think I can usually get a vibe for those. And if you've been in Tennessee for a while, not long enough. Okay, it won't take you long. Are you a homeschooler? Yeah. Yeah. Like I am all for like therapy. I think it should just be like, you get a checkup at the doctor, you should check in with a therapist every now and then. That's my view on it. And so most of my kids have been through therapy, and yes, I talked to them first. Even if they were on the list from the district, yes, I talked first. And we read the biographies, and yeah, so you can learn a lot from their biographies, and if they have pronouns after them, then you just keep going. Was that a hand? Yes. So he has language processing, which is the bilingual. It sounds like this kid is probably really overwhelmed with information. Do you have somebody around, or do you speak his first language?
I do not. His first language is Portuguese.
Okay, so no, but all right. Does he like pictures?
Yes, he very much enjoys picture books and enjoys listening to stories.
Okay. Can you communicate with him using the pictures and then pairing words with the pictures to help?
Yes. What concerns me is that even after many, many repetitions with the picture, the connection isn't being built between the picture and the word to where we can start taking that scaffold away. He's coming into a second year in kindergarten with me, and so I'm kind of trying to prepare what can I do differently this year to help him take next steps so that he is ready for first grade with another year of maturity under his belt.
When you give him directions, like how many steps do you give him at a time?
We went down to one.
Okay. And how did he respond? Was it one like verbal direction or one picture direction?
One verbal correction.
So I would try one verbal direction paired with an image or modeling what you want to do. Do that consistently and then move to 2 steps modeled. See how he does like respond with either seeing what you want him to do, have him repeat back what you're wanting him to do, and then that might tease out what all is happening. The challenge here is that he's little, you know. So part of it is he's little. He's already has 2 languages, and his weakest language is what he's dealing with all day. So he already has a lot going on. If he also might be on the spectrum if he's not picking up on the stuff around him.
Again, it's suspected but not diagnosed.
So you might never get a diagnosis. You might always stay with suspected because sometimes it's hard to get testing and it's expensive for some families. I just kind of operate with this is what it looks like, so this is what I'm going with. And if he is on the spectrum, one of the things that we can do, especially with the little guys, is modeling. And they like mimic a peer, they buddy up, because they don't intuitively know what to do. They have to be taught because it's all frontal lobe, and those neural pathways don't exist, but they can be built. And so by doing those step by step, pairing the image so you know there's understanding, and then repeating back, so then he's in the practice of, yes, I understand you. Then he's like responding, that's reciprocal conversation eventually, you know. So, I mean, you're at the real foundation skills here. Yes?
With recitation and reciting recitations, my husband, who also works at my school, is of the opinion that it should be oral, that a classical school that we should be doing oral recitations as a huge part of classical education. I agree with him. But I do know that some of my people who are struggling on the wheel, that's really hard. Do you have any advice or ways to adapt that for different learners?
Make it shorter. Start.
Like on Monday they tell me the first part.
Yep.
On Wednesday they tell me the middle. Friday they tell me that. They
Mhm.
know they can do it, and I know it's in there, but
Mhm.
just getting it out.
Yeah, just like break it up into steps, make it short. Let them feel success. High fives. Kids love high fives. I even do it online. Like I high five the camera, and they think that's the best thing ever. So, and it's free. We love that. And everybody can have one. So there you go. That's chunking, and that's also scaffolding. You're giving them a manageable piece of information. And then it's like, so you memorize this on Monday, you tell me at the end of the day on Monday, you tell me at the morning on Tuesday, you tell me before you go to lunch, and then on Wednesday you learn the new one and you say the old one with the new one, so it just grows. So they don't forget the first one. Yes. And that's situational, right? Because sometimes we want them to know word for word. Or is it like that the first one is have no other gods, and that's, yep, okay. Okay, so I think if that clock's right, yep, it is 2 o'clock. So here is my contact right there. So if you picked up a packet, my business card and everything is there. I'm also at a vendor table by Luther Classical College. You can come by and see me or find me whenever. I will be up here gathering all of the things. And so, feel free to come up and talk to me. Thank you.